Cool, that turned out a lot better than I thought it would.
Yeah, me too. We just kind of stole it right before the show. I was like, Andrew, we got to do this.
Yeah.
It's fun. Yeah, that's, if you never heard of Monty Montgomery, go check Monty Montgomery World Turning from a live album on Spotify.
It's very cool.
It's like a 12-minute long song, but it's really good.
Super rad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, welcome here, guys. So in case you're wondering what we're doing today, about a week ago, maybe a little bit more than a week ago, we did kind of like an answering your biggest questions, top 5 questions on guitar technique. Well, turns out everyone was hoping to have about 50,000 other questions answered. And we didn't get to anybody's questions that day. We kind of just focused on questions that we'd heard a lot of. So today, it's just a nice open Q&A. As long as it's about guitar technique, it is allowed. So we'll be taking questions from YouTube if you're watching on Facebook, and also, obviously, if you're a member, you can send in your questions. And we're going to just get to as many as we can until we run out of time.
I also sanction Guitar Gear questions.
Okay, you can also, yeah, okay, you can ask anything you want. You can ask anything you want. So I'm going to do my best to catch as many as I can, and I'm going to kind of play computer man while Nate kind of answers the questions so we can get as many as we can. But there's no guarantees, so we're going to do our best.
Rapid fire.
With that, is there anything you want to address, Nate? Or
nope.
Are you? I'll put this away right away.
As a lesson from today, make friends with other musicians, particularly piano players, because they will teach you things that you never really have the perspective on as a guitar player. I was just talking with Jordan from Piano today about a chord progression on a song that he'd come up with, and it was really interesting. So just for that little chunk of knowledge, if somebody else plays piano, go make friends with them. Take them out for coffee or something.
Yeah. I completely agree. I've hung out a fair bit with Jordan and stuff like that, and having somebody who plays a different instrument, they approach some of the same concepts in a wildly different way. Yeah. It's pretty cool. Okay, well, I'm going to jump right into these members' questions that are already here. Again, so you can submit those questions in YouTube chat, and I'm going to do my best to grab them. Okay, here's the first one. This one is from Fat Strat. What are the advantages of using alternate tunings?
Alternate tunings, well, there are a lot of answers that I could give you, but I'll give you my personal one, and then I'll give you like the textbook ones. To me, the biggest advantage of alternate tunings is it sparks creativity with me. Like if I put my guitar in DADGAD or drop D, I will come up with things that I wouldn't normally come up with if I would leave my guitar in standard tuning. That's my answer, and that answer kind of encompasses a lot of the other answers I'm going to give you. The other one is, like a really practical one, is if you want to play an E, but it's just not mean enough sounding for you, and not drony sounding enough, just dropping it down to drop D can give you a lot meaner sound. And a song me and my wife wrote together. It gets really low and nasty and kind of swampy sounding. And that's one advantage to it. DADGAD is another one of my favorite tunings that I just couldn't do what I could do, or it'd be prohibitively difficult to play the shapes I want when using like a tuning like DADGAD or Open C or something like that. So those are my best answers for you. And As far as technique, chording technique, if this is a chord you're playing, and or something ridiculous like that, and Dadgad or Open C makes it that much easier. It just makes your life a lot less strenuous sometimes.
I will second. I was reading other stuff, but I heard you mention Dadgad. Dadgad is one of the coolest and easiest tunings to enter into.
It's very intuitive. Yeah. You just kind of put your fingers around to, oh, that sounds good.
Yeah.
And people always say that to me on like standard tuning. I was like, I don't understand that at all.
Yeah.
Just.
Okay, are we good to move on to the next one? Okay. This next one is another member's question from Worley. This one's a longer one, so strap in. You asked, what is your biggest weakness in respect to guitar? I should just mention, we sent out an email for Guitar Technique Made Easy, just started on Monday. And exactly. And so the email that we sent out, we asked, what is your biggest weakness on the guitar? So that's what this is about. Anyways, back to the question. I've been playing for a few months now, and I can form and change between most open chords, and my timing seems reasonable. I practice most days, but find myself repeating the same thing every time I practice. Not sure if it is me taking comfort from what I can do or a lack of confidence to do something different. At times, this can be demotivating, and my intention is to try and follow those lessons to the letter and see where that leads. I am already dreading the bar chord lessons coming up. Anyways, in summary, I would like to say that this is my own mindset, which is my biggest weakness.
Okay. I can't remember who said it, but I'm sure tons of people have said it throughout the years. And somebody said, if you're only working on stuff you're already good at, then you're not getting any better. You're not really practicing. You're just playing, which has a place in your guitar time. It's great to sit down and practice and just have fun with what you know. Songs, just jamming. There is a time for that, and you need to schedule that time so you have fun playing the guitar. That's the whole reason you started doing this, right? But if you're constantly working on stuff that you already know, then you're not getting any better. Not really. You're not expanding your vocabulary or your song library or anything like that. So the reason for that usually is that people don't have small manageable goals that they've set up for themselves to work towards. Because if you don't have those goals, you're not going to have anything that's pressing you to practice. Okay, I set a goal to learn this song by the end of this month. So I have to practice these things. I have to learn these new chords and these new strumming patterns and this riff in order to get that song down. And what happens when you do that, you automatically get better. You get those things under your belt that are required to play that song or to jam over that jam track, whatever it is. So yes, it is probably a little bit of you being comfortable with yourself, because nobody likes to be bad at things when they sit down and practice the guitar. If I practice a jazz standard, I'm just going to be terrible. A jazz standard that I don't know, and I'm just going to be terrible for the first couple days, I'm sure, at least. And that's just not a very comfortable feeling. It feels like you're stuck and you're not getting anywhere. But if you keep pressing into that and scheduling, moderate amounts of times, in addition to having fun and just other musical things, that is the kind of thing that you need to do. You need to set goals on stuff like that to push you forward. Otherwise, you have no reason to, just do anything about it, or just sit around and play G, C, and D all the time, right?
Right.
So yes, it's probably just a comfort level thing, but everybody's guilty of that, man. Like if I sit down and just go, I'm gonna work on chops today. I already know how to do that. I could always get better at it, but it'd probably be better if I worked on drilling keys or learning a new song, after 10 or 15 minutes of working on chops, right? Instead of working on chops for an hour.
Yeah, that's very true. All right, to the next question here. We'll grab one from YouTube now. This one is from Ryan August. What method of tuning is recommended?
A method? Use an electronic tuner. That's what I would do, man. Mm-hmm. It's a lot easier, and the more often you do that, the better you're going to get at tuning, and you're going to get a better ear, and you're going to be able to decipher whether the note needs to come up or down more, because you're just basically training yourself on how to hear a note when you use an electronic tuner. But a couple tips that I would have for you as far as tuning: always tune it up to the note. Just the way the guitar works physically, it stays in tune better that way, instead of coming down to a note. So always go below and come up, and then always tune once and then tune again, because as soon as I put more pressure on this E string, all the other strings are going to go flat a little bit. So tune once, all the strings, get them really close, and then tune it again. You're gonna notice like, what the heck? I just tuned this thing. Is that again? That's just the way it goes.
Yeah. Nice. Another question here from YouTube. This one is from Country Girl. I've written 2 songs and recorded them at a recording studio.
Awesome.
Wow. And I'm trying to write another one, but nothing sounds good anymore. What can I do? It's a tough question.
I assume they are country songs because your name is Country Girl. I would start trying to find inspiration from other places maybe, or just start listening to other music than the music you're always listening to. That's what's kind of worked for me in the past. Or go see some live music. You may get some inspiration from that. As soon as if you're listening to the same type of music all the time, for me, it's rock or progressive guitar instrumental music. I've listened to that all the time. I have a limited amount of influence and inspiration to draw from when I go to write other things. If I'm starting to listen to other stuff, I've been listening to a lot of Johnny Lang lately. If I'm listening to that, it's going to give me different influences and different ways to use the same tools. He's still using pentatonic scales and E chords and B chords, but he's using a completely different style. So maybe start trying to listen to some things you normally wouldn't listen to and be influenced by them, different instruments you normally listen to. That's what I would do.
Yeah. Okay, next one. This one is from a member, so this is Will Tell. I struggle with vibrato technique and wonder if it's anything to do with volume settings on the guitar and amp as much as my technique. I won't be awake for the live session, but I'd be grateful if you could say how you balance finger speed and amp settings. Oh, I can't tell if it's vibrato or legato. It's kind of a mixture of the 2 words, and I can't tell if it's
vibrato. It's probably, I would think from that discussion, I think it would be legato.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
So my guitar is very clean right now. I'm putting the bridge pickup. There's picked. That's with only picking the first note. Here's picking every 2, 3, 4, every 4th note. So just the notes I'm playing on my index finger. Now here's with some distortion added. It's a lot easier to get even sounding legato if you have a little bit of gain on the guitar. Even if it's not distorted sounding, this one is like super clean. I have almost no gain on it at all. It's backed right up. But if I'm not just trilling on one string, with just one pick, it's decent. But if I'm moving from string to string, only doing legato twice per string, so pick, hammer on, pick, hammer on. It sounds pretty decent. So once you get to a certain point, you have to use, you have to build up your strength and your coordination and your technique. Because those 2 notes, pick, pull off, sounded pretty much the same volume.
Right.
And that's what you should be shooting for with a clean tone. If you can do that with a clean tone, with some gain on there, it's going to be super easy to do. Tips for getting your legato technique up to par is one of the warm-up exercises for guitar technique made easy, the trill one. And this is a warm-up exercise, so you're warming up at the same time you're working on your legato technique. I'm not picking any of those notes now, right? I just picked the very first one I did on that one, and just make sure that you're not, you don't have your elbow trying to pull off like this. All right, that makes it a lot harder. But just put your elbow down and let it relax next to your side. And if you put the distortion on, a lot easier to keep it going. The pickup helps you out a little bit there. And a lot of times what people do, somebody mentioned this in one of the lesson pages the other day, how if you're doing a hammer-on, you can do another hammer-on in conjunction with your pull-off. I don't do that much, but it can help. I do know some players that do that.
Just to get more volume? Is it just to get more volume out of that pull-off?
Or it gets a little bit different sound too.
It does, yeah. Okay.
So you get that kind of ping on that note, so it's a little more pronounced legato, a little bit sharper.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting. One thing that a lot of people don't know is they think just distortion is what makes legato and stuff easier, but it's because it's causing compression. So you can actually have a clean tone, use a compressor, and what that does is it takes the quiet stuff and makes it louder, and takes the loud stuff and makes it quieter, so the whole thing sounds more even. So it's a good trick. If you want to work on your legato, work on it on an acoustic.
Exactly, as I was about to say.
Right?
You'd think it'd be, like, to me, this is easier than, it takes more strength and more, it takes more strength and coordination, but it's easier to get a consistently loud note, something, than it is on acoustic. I guess because I have more tension on the strings.
That makes sense. Interesting. Yeah. Okay, well, you gave him lots of tips. Hope that helps. Next one here, we'll jump back over to YouTube. This one is from Mioru. I'd like to start learning to finger pick, but I have no idea where to start.
I would start. Stick your arm out in front of you, relax it, put it straight, and then just bring it to the guitar. I use classical method for playing, which means I just float my hand and my fingers come to the strings. You can anchor your pinky on top of the guitar. A lot of people do that, or you can anchor your wrist. Doesn't matter. I would try it with all three and see what works best for you. But I would start literally just bringing your hand to the guitar. Don't kink your wrist too far one way or the other, unless you're anchoring your hand to the body of the guitar. Stay relaxed, and then put your third finger on the high E string, second finger on the B string, and index finger on the G. That's going to be your setup for those 3 fingers, just right there in a row. And then your thumb on the low E string, and literally just start plucking with your thumb. Do this for 5 or 10 minutes a day for a few weeks, and then also, in addition to that, just do the exact same thing with your index finger. You know, maybe 5 minutes on each finger, 5 minutes on thumb, 5 minutes on middle finger, 5 minutes on ring finger. Just plucking like that. All I'm doing is pulling in like this. I have fingernails, but you don't have to have fingernails. You can use just the flesh on your skin. And literally just do that. That's step 1. Then once you're done with that, try to go in order. Thumb, index, middle, ring finger. Then you could put a chord on. I mean, basically we're playing an E minor chord right now. We can do an E major. Go as slow as you need to, try to make sure it's even. You can do a G. C. On the C, you have to switch your thumb to the 5th string because you don't play the low E string. But that's a great place to start. Just learn how to get the basic technique of using your thumb and your fingers to pluck the notes, and then just start moving them through your open chords. That's what I would do.
Nice. Cool. Onward and forward. So next question. This is from Bean Jammin'.
Hey, Benjamin.
Okay. Hey guys, not really a technique question here, so we're not going to talk about it. I'm just kidding. Not really a technique question here, but I'm looking at getting an upgraded multi-effects board to have upstairs as my family is looking at recording an album sort of thing, covers, not originals, for a Christmas gift for our family, and I'd like to get a better board. Do either of you have first-hand experience with the Headrush pedal board, and do you have any suggestions getting a tax refund in a couple weeks so I can splurge a little bit? Nice.
I've heard really good things about it. I've seen some comparison videos between that and the Helix, and I don't find them to be much different at all. I think it's a lot. I think it's a lot cheaper.
Right? Yeah.
I think you get a lot of bang for your buck with that.
Is it orange?
It looks a lot like this.
Okay, I can't remember which one.
The screen on it's like a freaking full-on iPad, though. It looks like. Yeah.
Man.
Well, maybe an iPhone Plus.
What was I going to say? Yeah, it seems like more and more companies are coming out with things like that. Like I remember there was the days of the Boss, what was it called? Was it like the MG1 or something like that? I can't remember the exact name.
I like the ME50. I still like that thing.
ME1 is what I might be thinking, and the ME50 is, I remember that one too. You can't really go wrong with a lot of them these days. I mean, the Helix is obviously a great one, but you're going to spend some more money. I've heard good things about the Headrush, no first-hand experience. Yeah.
Benjamin, you might want to look into plugins too if you're recording in a computer.
Yeah.
Look into plugins, look into the bias effects. Helix makes a plugin that sounds exactly like the floor unit, only it's a lot cheaper. Headrush may make a digital version of that too.
All you would need to do that is just have a way to plug directly into your
Yeah, if you have
interface. If you have a
audio
Scarlett
interface.
or something like that, you can do that. I think if I remember correctly, he has a Focusrite 18i20 maybe, or something like that, one of the bigger ones. You might need to use a DI box into a microphone input to your guitar and then use the software in your computer. But it's up to you. Those are definitely cheaper. That's a cheaper option for sure. All right, next question. This one is from Lloyd. Hi guys, really love your webinar. I am still a beginner. I know basic chords, tabs, and a little bit of scales. Where should I start? Any suggestions? I want to learn soloing.
Oh, okay. He knows. Could you read what he knows to me again?
So, sorry, let me just grab it here. He knows basic chords, tabs, and a little bit of scales.
Okay. I would start with the blues if I were you. If I was you. If I were you. Yeah, were. That's right. The reason is because the blues translates into so many different kinds of music. So if you learn that really well, you're gonna have a really solid foundation to go play rock, country, jazz, whatever, folk, whatever it is that you want to learn. So I would definitely start with a solid foundation in the blues, and you probably already know your minor pentatonic scale, right? So start being aware of where all your root notes are in that scale, like there's one there, there, and there. Those are your safe notes for playing over the one chord in the blues, right? If you're in A blues. So you can start, always come back to those A's. And then start to learn where the other chord tones are in the 12-bar blues progression, so the 4 and the 5. So when you change to the 4 chord, back to the 1 chord, right? The 5, so it'll be it. In this case, it'll be an E, back to a D, then an A. So learn where the 1, 4, and 5 are in this blues scale. The 1, 4, 5 are A, D, E, A, D, E, A. That's a really great place to start. And then just start learning songs and trying to be aware of what scale degrees you're playing out of that scale instead of just, otherwise you're going to get stuck doing this.
Right.
Just going through the scale. So that's, you can make $1 million in a whole career if you can do that tastefully and learn how to play what you hear in your head.
Yeah, absolutely. Nate Savage's guarantee.
All that's missing is your motivation.
There you go. Okay, next one here is from Les Johnson. Okay, we got 2 questions, so we're going to hit them back to back. So first one, really enjoy the first strumming lesson. It's an area I need to focus on as I've concentrated a lot on lead guitar. Tried out the lesson today and found the 100 BPM a challenge, but managed to get a grip on it. Any recommendation for pick gauge when strumming? Tried 3 different gauges today with varying degrees of success.
That's good. I'm glad you did that, Les. That's really important to be able to strum with different picks. Let me see. Different gauges. I should have.
The tin.
This is like the thinnest pick that I use is 0.73 millimeters. And check it out. Check the kind of clicky, picky sound, which sometimes you want, sometimes you don't. The pick I normally use is like a 1.5 millimeters.
Okay.
It's pretty thick.
Yeah.
And normally if you give somebody this pick who's used to using this thinner pick, they're gonna be like, what the heck, I can't get through. Because they're used to holding on to this thinner pick with a death grip, and you can get away with that a little bit more when you're using a thinner pick. But it's funny that you mentioned this because guitar technique made easy, right? It's all about the technique you use for strumming. You have to be able to adjust it on the fly in order to use different thicknesses of picks. I can use up to like probably 2 millimeters is probably the thickest I like to go if I'm doing a lot of strumming. Even then, like this is really the thickest I would choose of my own volition, right? About 1.5 millimeters. But I just find you get a little bit thicker of a tone and you don't get as much pick noise. Not that that's a bad thing. You might want that. Yeah, so I would try everything from like 0.6 all the way up to 1.5 millimeters. and just be really aware of how relaxed you are when you're strumming and how much the pick you're digging into the strings. Because I have to be more aware of that if I'm using a thicker pick. Otherwise, I'm like, oh, I can't get the speed. But if you're aware of it and you make the little adjustments in your technique, then it's not going to be a problem for you.
And I would argue almost that if you're performing the technique properly, it shouldn't matter the size of pick. I know I moved up to a 2.5 for a long time, and it's a noticeable difference, but you realize I can do all the same stuff. Took some adjustment, but the same stuff, and then pick size becomes more of like a tonal, or pick width becomes more of a tonal preference maybe, or something like that.
Yeah. And I'm always flopping back and forth between different picks. So.
Yeah, and I've ended up just settling on, I think this is like a 1.3 or something like that, and it works for me every time, nice and consistent for every type of playing that I'm doing.
I don't even know. I think this is a 1.52, but T had like a 0.89 Tortex the other day, whatever this is. Yeah. I was like, I miss the way that feels. So I dug mine out of my pick box and put it back in my little tin, my regular use tin.
That's so funny. Yeah. I think that might be a 1. The blues might be a 1. Okay. I'm not 100% sure though.
Me neither.
And then the follow-up question from Les on a totally different topic. When practicing 3-note per string legato hammer-on and pulling off, I find that pulling off is not bad, but I can't get the stretch to pull off between the 3 frets. My fingers, I just can't do it. Is there a way around this, maybe an alternative technique, or would I be better off using a 2-note pull-off scale as pentatonic or regular major scale?
You don't. I know what you're talking about, and I'm just going to assume it's like a spread like this. So either hammering on or pulling off. One thing that will help is to get your thumb on the very back of the neck. And I have my thumb over here a lot just from making chords or rhythm guitar or even some lead stuff. But on this type of playing 3-note per string stuff, especially on the higher strings, you want to get your thumb way back there and bring your arm around. And I'm not kinking my wrist like that, but my thumb is very low on the neck. Right? And I'm planting my index finger, which is just the way I play, because I have very medium-sized hands, like average. And I leave my index finger planted, but you don't have to. You don't have to leave it planted if that's a tough stretch for it. I'm not very good at this technique because I don't need to use it, so I've never really developed it, but I have messed with it a little bit just to decide if I want it or not. But as soon as you hammer on with your second finger there, index finger comes up. And the same thing, as soon as you hammer on my pinky, my second finger comes up. So I'm not really stretching.
Nice.
Right? So it just makes it a little bit easier to not have to stretch. Let's mess with that and see if that helps you at all. I mean, it's going to take you a while to build that coordination, but if you're used to doing like this, for me, it would take a few weeks to get complete, well, probably a few months to get completely comfortable with that because I've been doing it the other way for so long.
Right.
Cool.
That makes sense. Okay, next one here. We'll jump back over to YouTube and do a few. I just want to make sure I don't reread the same ones. Okay, this one's from Micah. Hey, I keep picking the wrong string when I'm playing. For example, I'm supposed to hit the E string and instead I hit the A string.
Okay, that's a little bit of a pain to fix, but it is a fairly quick fix overall.
Right.
Forget about your left hand. Don't even worry about it. You can put a chord on if you want to, but actually look back at your picking hand or strumming hand and just work on hitting that E every time. Start with the E, look back, actually physically look back at it. If you want to have some kind of tactile reference with either your palm or your finger on the top of the guitar, that helps a lot of people. But do that for a minute or two and then do the A. Then the D, and do it for longer than I've been doing it here. And you can do that for every string, do the high E string. And do this on a regular basis. You don't have to spend a whole practice session on this. 5 minutes at the beginning of a practice session is a really good practice point. But eventually you can just start to program in on your particular guitar exactly where each string is, and your body's going to be a lot more accurate at hitting, for instance, the low E string. So just make that a concerted practice point, spend a little bit of time on it every time. You can even use that as a warm-up if you want to, just get acclimated to the guitar. That's what I would do.
Nice. Just got to put in that time sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. Next one, this one is from Ariel. I've noticed when I play chords, there is a vibration in it. What can I do to make it stop?
I think you're talking about buzzing?
I would assume buzzing.
Okay, so if you're playing a C chord and you get something like this, or maybe there you go.
Yeah.
You have to number one, you have to make sure you're pushing down on the strings hard enough, which I'd say most people usually are. It's just a matter of technique. So make sure you're pushing down hard enough. If you push down a little bit harder, if that isn't cleared up, it might be something else. You need to be right behind the fret as you're playing this chord. So every finger right up next to the fret. That'll help a lot, because if you go toward the back, no matter how hard I push, it's gonna buzz. Okay, so right behind the fret. Make sure to bring your elbow in. That's gonna do a couple things. It's gonna put you in a better position to come right down to the very tip of your finger, right behind the fret, and it's gonna help you not mute the neighboring string, which you might be getting a buzz like this. Right? And that's not the note I'm fretting, that's the note next to it, the D string. So when you bring that elbow in, right behind the fret, both of those notes are going to be clear. Okay, right there, I brought my elbow up and my finger flattened out a little bit, and that created a buzz. So right behind the fret, elbow in, and make sure you're pushing down hard enough. Cool.
Okay. So we're running out of time, so we're going to go through these next ones pretty quick, if you're ready. Okay, this one is from I'm Ronnie. What are some of your tips for strumming fast? I can't seem to get it down, and I feel like my hands get caught at times and doesn't fully strum.
Right. Number one, for like when you're doing strumming practice and just building your strumming technique, forget about your left hand or your fretting hand, and just look back and actually focus all of your attention on your strumming hand. Break it down into little bit parts, into the component parts of strumming. So only do downstrokes at first. You want to be really relaxed and get this rotational movement like this with your strumming, not locking your wrist and doing just like this. All right? It gets really rigid and you're going to get tired pretty fast. And it's going to make it harder to really dial in your technique. Only use as much of the pick as necessary to make the strings make the amount of noise that you want. If you use too much of the pick, it's gonna be really hard to get to the strings. So just come back here and only do downstrokes. Think about that rotational movement, like you're flicking something off your hand or turning a doorknob, something like that. And only use just enough of the pick on the strings to make as much volume as you want. You need to be really relaxed when you do this. You don't want a really tight grip on the pick. You wanna hold it only as tight as you need to make it stay in your fingers. Like that pick's about to fall out of my fingers right now. And you do need to grip on it a little bit faster, a little bit harder the faster you go. But if your technique is good as far as the rotation, not locking your wrist, getting that rotation in there, just sticking enough of the pick into the strings, then you have a lot easier time getting faster. Staying relaxed, right?
Yeah.
And you can do the same thing with your upstrokes. Upstrokes is even more crucial. Don't dig too much of the pick into the strings, and you don't have to hit all 6 strings on your upstrokes. Then once you spend some time developing that with those tips, put them together. It's going to take some time, and make that your 1 or 2 week goal. Is every practice session spend 15 minutes on that, just that.
Yeah, nice. Next one here, this is from Lauren. Sight reading is a big challenge for me. I seem to memorize everything. Any tips or books you can recommend?
Yes. Sight reading to me isn't that hard if I'm doing it all the time. If I'm not doing it all the time, it is a pain.
Right.
It's like, okay, I took 2 years of Spanish in high school, but I don't remember much because I never use it, right? So it's the exact same thing. So you have to kind of do it all the time, or at least on a regular basis, to get really good at it. Otherwise, it's just going to be frustrating. What I did was I went through Berkeley's Guitar Method, the first volume, as I was writing all of the modules or the courses for sight reading on the Guitareo website. Right. So I went through that book because I knew there was no tab in it. I would have to read everything. So I would get that book or either check out the Guitareo site, because there's 8 courses on reading rhythms, and 8 courses on reading notation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, on to the next one here. This one's from Danny. There are so many ways to make the same chord. How many different ways should I learn?
I would start with 5. So if you've heard of the cage system, all it is it takes your open chords, your fundamental pillar open chords, C, A, G, B, and D. And it teaches you how to use those chords all the way up the neck. And almost all the chords you're going to play on the guitar can be traced back to those 5 open major chords. And so that's what the first thing I would learn to do. And you already know some of these if you know your basic E and A bar chord shapes. So let's take, what's a good one? Let's do a key of G major, or just a G chord. You know G chord, right? Probably. You probably know this G bar chord too, right? A lot of chord people never get to is this D-shaped G chord. All I'm doing is moving a D up. Same idea. I'm moving an E up until I can make a G out of it, right? I'm moving a D up until I can make a G out of it. And the same thing happens with your C. Move a C up until you can make a G out of it. And then you probably know this A one. You've been playing for a while. I'm just moving an A up until you can make a G out of it, right? And then up here again, you're back to a G. This G shape. It's a little bit tough up here, but being able to do that is like half the battle as far as I'm concerned, as far as learning the layout of the fretboard for rhythm and lead guitar.
It's going to take some time because there's a fair amount of shapes to learn and a lot of them are pretty awkward, but almost every chord that you will learn down the road stems from one of those shapes.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
And I wish I'd have learned that earlier. I learned that. I started learning about Cage, or heard about it first maybe 10 or 11 years ago.
Okay. We do have some free lessons on YouTube on the Cage system. I'm not sure right now in the members area, do we have Caged up yet?
It's not up yet, but it's video. It's taped.
It's all ready. So it'll
it's
be up
taped
soon.
on the VHS. It's recorded.
Yeah, so that one will be up soon. All right. This will be the last one here from YouTube today. So this is from Jesse. Is it ever advisable to not use a pick?
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
100% Tile. There's a song I've been fiddling with. That would be kind of hard to play with a pick. You can do it, but if you want like a harsher, brighter attack, you should use a pick. If you want a softer attack, use your fingers, but I assume you're talking about strumming. Okay, now listen to that with a pick. It's a lot harsher, right? So it's really up to you what tone you like better, or what musical application you find yourself in. One of my favorite guitar players got fed up with the way he was playing. I've told this story before, but like before a live show, he's like, "Well, that's it. I'm not using a pick anymore. Forget it."
Wow.
And he plays insane stuff.
Who is that name?
Richie Kotzen.
Oh, Richie Kotzen. Cool.
Don't mind me just tuning.
Get tuned up. We have one more members question here, and then that will be it. Are you all ready for it? Okay. This one is from Paul59. Hey, Nate and Andrew, enjoying the strumming technique lessons. I'm doing pretty well with the 60, 70, and 80 BPM, and now I'm working on consistency with 90 BPM. At what BPM do you consider a person getting into the intermediate level threshold? I'm wanting to bridge the gap, but I fall apart at 100 BPM.
I wish I had my phone here. Taylor, could you grab me my phone? It's just right here. Because I'm getting this because I'm not sure. I know that I would consider anything, thanks man, above 120 16th notes.
Yep.
I don't, like, it's going to be rare that you need that in most musical situations. Let me get my metronome up here. Tempo. 60 or 70, I would definitely consider like beginner, because that's just a really good, solid place to start. 16 notes. And I hope you're talking about 16 notes, Paul. I assume you are, because I know how long I've seen your videos, and I think that would be easy for you. And this is a little bit biased, just because of the music I've listened to and my personal experiences. I would consider between 80 and 110. I would consider anything other. Oh man, this is such a tough question to answer. I would consider anything over 110 fairly advanced, and like anything above that, you're not going to use that a ton. Let's do 120. I could use that in a song, especially like a funk tune. Let's do 130. Let's do 140. $150. I'd like this is getting to where
200.
200. Let's do 200. No. 150. I don't know. There's going to be some gray lines in there. I would say anything over 120, 130 would be advanced. Anything from like 90 to 120 would be intermediate.
Yeah, I think that's in general pretty good ballpark.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if there's not going to be a ton of use for strumming at over 140 beats per minute.
Right. Right. Yeah, you might do some of those little kind of things.
I don't really think about tempo when I do that. I just kind of spaz out for a second. And then.
Well, they're perfectly rhythmic, so.
Yeah. Paul, I would like shooting for 100 from where you're at, from what I've seen for you, is a good like next level for you, I think. Yeah. And especially staying with that for a couple minutes with a metronome. If you can do that, you're in a good spot.
Yeah. Nice. Cool. Okay, well, that's going to do it for questions. One last thing that we'll mention, Guitar Technique Made Easy, the course that we launched back at the beginning of January. Well, it started yesterday, right? Is that what we said? It started yesterday. Registration's only open till January 31st at midnight. After that, we're not taking anybody else. And what it is a 26-week long course with Nate. And then you can ask him questions just like this the entire time. You'll have direct access to them. That's kind of the idea. There's a link in the description on YouTube, Facebook, and if you're watching it anywhere else, there'll be a link. If you do want to learn more, you can watch the trailer there.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's maybe play a little tune out.
How does this thing go again?
I remember. We have an idea. Are you ready?
I suppose.